Okay, guys, let me tell you a story. This date, 4th of May 2007, evening. It was a very windy day. Thunderstorms, lightning, visibility was too low. I'm not talking about here. It's in a place called Douala in Cameroon, in the African continent. There, a Boeing 737, operated by Kenyan Airways, KQ507, from Abidjan passing through Douala to Nairobi, was taking ready for a takeoff at the intermediate station of Douala. Two people were in the cockpit on that day, Captain Francis Wambi and First Officer Andrew Kiru. They were doing the daily checks, the checks to get the flight ready for the flight. They got the clearance for taxiing. They were taxiing to the runway for the takeoff. Captain took the radio control from the first officer, contacted the ATC and asked for a small diversion on the flight path. That his approval, request was granted approval. And soon after that, he put the thrust on and the plane took off. Both the pilots did not realize that they did not get a clearance from the ATC for the takeoff. The first officer was supposed to do the radio communication. It was taken over by the captain, and the first officer thought captain got the clearance. The captain overlooked that. There was a miscommunication between both at that very moment of takeoff. The flight was airborne. And when the flight gets airborne, there is a small gravitational pull because of the asymmetry in the wings, and the flight was slightly going to the right. The captain changed it to the left, again going to the left. So the captain corrected that, and he set the degree, the path which you want to go in the flight controls, I think 132 degrees, and slightly changed to 139, slight right. That's what he wanted to avoid the storm on the airport. And then he said a command, OK command, which means engage the autopilot. There's a command button, CMD button on the flight. So engage the autopilot was the command given by the captain. But the first officer did not acknowledge that command. He did not say anything. He did not engage the autopilot. The captain overlooked that. He did not notice that. For 55 seconds, the plane was on air with nobody controlling it. Captain, first officer, or autopilot system. And I said before, it was drifting to the right. The plane continued this drift, and there was no one to turn it to the left. It was going to about 160 degrees. The path was 139. It went up to 160 degree. The first officer who was supposed to monitor these controls, he was seeing this. But he thought the captain made a deliberate move, because his assumption was the captain is in control of the plane. He didn't say a word. He was silent. The captain suddenly noticed on his instrument cluster, it was going way beyond the right. Suddenly he got surprised. Then the aircraft gave a bank alarm that it is banking 35 degrees to the right. The captain took controls of the control system. Then it went to 50 degrees. Then he realized that the autopilot was not engaged. He pressed the autopilot. But when the banking alarm is on, the autopilot will not come on to the full effect. But autopilot will correct the banking to 30 degrees. But captain, he was not in the right state of mind at that time. His situational awareness was very low, right? And he override the autopilot system and took complete control. If he had left it to the autopilot system, it would have recovered to 90 degrees and the flight would have taken its path. But he thought, in a panic mode, the captain started turning to the right, again to the left, and it went to the 90 degrees. And the captain said the word, we are crashing. And the first officer repeated, we are crashing, left, and he turned left. The captain again turned right, and the plane went into a spiral mode and crashed into a marshland 5 kilometers from this airport with all the 114 passengers on board dead. A tragic incident indeed, right? It was on air only for 1 or 2 seconds. And the aircraft was perfectly healthy. No issues, no mechanical issues, no electrical issues. What really you think happened there? There were multiple paradoxes of communication errors there, right? The first, they took off without the clearance from the ATC. It's a grave mistake in the airline field. They were airborne. Luckily, nothing happened. No mishap happened there. The captain was a 53-year-old who had 8,600 flying hours into his credit. The first officer was 23 years old with rather less 800 flying hours to his credit. So you see the difference between both of them? And the captain was an intimidating character. His personality was so intimidating. He made comments at the first officer, sarcastic comments at the first officer. Maybe that's the reason why first officer remained to choose silent, because a senior person, so senior up in my hierarchy, why should I let him, he knows better than me. Maybe that was his thought. But when the investigation authorities checked the back records of the captain, he was having a below average rating in his training period. He was having low situational awareness. And that was the reason why he started, maybe he was not in the right frame of mind when the panic situation happened, which could have avoided this mishap. And even the flight manuals, the training manuals of Kenyan Airlines did not do a good job, is what the literature says, because it didn't say that the first officer or anyone receiving the command has to verify it, saying done, which was not done by the first officer when he gave the command of autopilot. Neither the captain asked him, did you do that? Again, a big miscommunication. So that's what we talk about, how you communicate. I mean, we all communicate between ourselves, to our peers, to our parents. It happens all across. That's part and parcel of what we do, right? And there are many choices we can make on how do we communicate. In a communication model, you speak a lot, and when you speak, your body language changes, your tone changes, the style of your speech changes. Only 8% of communication is communicated through words. Remaining 92% is through non-verbal, which is your body language, your tone. Same words, when spoken in a different style, can mean different things. That's your choice, how you deliver that message across, in which tone, which language. And that's what the captain did there. The captain made sarcastic comments to his first officer. At one point, he asked him to put on the wipers, and he said, you can't see anything outside, why do you want wipers? That was a sarcastic comment. And a simple comment he made, but the tone by which he made would have impacted the person receiving that comment. And at many instances, you can choose to be silent or you speak out. Silence sometimes works. Sometimes it can create catastrophes like what we saw. So choose the right one, where you want to be silent and where you want to speak. Bring clarity of thought, which was not there in the incident we saw. There was a lot of ambiguity around the commands given, commands received, what was thought process, that even what you think within you, the self-talk you have within yourself, that's also communication. What you speak to yourself is again a communication. Simple, complex, he could have simply given that element of driving that airplane or flying that airplane to the auto control system. It would have done its job, but he thought of overriding it. That was a choice that he made. explicit versus implicit. The manuals didn't have explicitly written what you want to do. Sometimes we always assume and we think the other person will assume that or will get that point. But unless some things, when it is not mentioned explicitly, people may not get it. And some important things have to be said explicitly. Now, of this incident, right, what I think is more important was the silence that the first officer had. Because in a state of emergency, the flight officer has the power to take the control of the aircraft from his captain if the captain is doing something wrong. So, what made him keep silent, thinking the captain is always right? And we always have this tendency, right? We always think sometimes we should keep quiet when people are around us speak. And that depends on your personality. Each of you sitting in this room has a personality, and that personality differs between individuals. Your thoughts, your belief systems, they're all different from each other. And that what we saw here was a personality difference between the way captain behaves and the way the first officer behaves. So what is personality? There are two parts to this word personality. One is your nature, which is what you got from your parents through your genes, got transferred to you as a behavior that you have. But the most important part of your personality is the second part, nurture. How you were brought up, the environment where you grew up, the people around you who influenced you in your childhood. People say in your age, 0 to 7 years of age, your conscious mind has not developed at all. And what you see around you straight goes to your subconscious mind and stays there and become part of you. And that becomes a behavior, right? Many things that we see around us, however good our upbringing is, right? Many things that we see around us, there are many needs that are not met by our parents during our childhood. And we adopt a character to get around those needs. And that over a period of time become like a character or a behavior for us. Just like when you have a fracture in your hand, you put a cast, right? And if you don't remove that cast, it becomes a part of you. And the behavior, the nurture part of it is like a cast that you have worn on yourself to cover something or that you gain from the people around you. Say, for example, the simple case of why the first officer remains silent. Now, you all would have noticed this. When you are in a room with your professors, with your seniors, with your parents or whatever, you tend to keep silent. Yes or no? Right? You think our seniors or our parents are there, let them speak. Right? Now, if you go back to your childhood, when you go to your room full of your parents, uncles, aunts sitting and you try to make a comment there, you would have got a statement from them. Kids, go out and play. Don't speak when elders are there. Right? And that statement has gone into you as a belief. That's part of your belief system. Saying, when I have elders around, I should not speak. And that's why we tend to be quiet. And I've seen this mostly in people from this region where people become quiet. I mean, there are people who are not part of this, that different personality who have not seen this at all. But majority is what I believe is have been through this, and we tend to adopt this behavior. And people who have got a very strict parents, right, who have been very strict on what they should do, how they should keep their belongings, they tend to become more perfectionist when they grew up, right? Agree? And people who have not had a good childhood, who have tried to please their parents, They become more people pleasers when they become child. They do everything that people appreciate them. They want more appreciations. You can relate. Many of you might be relating this to your childhood or if your friends or family members. But that's the true reality. That's what we got from our environment that we brought in. And that's what made us who we are. So what do we do from here? The first step in that is awareness. We call it mindfulness. Being aware of your behavior patterns, how you behave in a scenario that happens, right? Once you become, it is like in a situation where it happens, you will be able to know how you are going to respond. Because there's always a reason for everything that you do. There's a reason for why you do what you do. And once you become aware of what you do, what you're doing, accept what you want. That's your behavior. So many people, when you talk to them, when you give them feedback, we have seen that they become defensive, saying, oh, I did this because of these reasons. They give a long list of reasons why they could not do this. But if you take this feedback inside you and look back, look at your patterns of behavior, maybe that's where you see, this is what I am. But that is not same as complacence. Being complacent is different from being accepting yourself. There's a thin line between that. But being complacent is, this is what I am, this is how I will be, and being there as it is. But accepting and awareness is more about understanding on who I am, looking inside to who I am. And once you understand, or once you become aware and accept of yourself, the action, the transformation can start from there. That's where you start changing how you can change or where you want to change and how you can change. You all have heard this proverb, right? Knowledge is power. So when you become aware of yourself, when you accept yourself, that's knowledge, right? But do you agree to the statement, is knowledge power? Is it true? I would say this is true. Right? Having just knowledge is power, or applying that knowledge is power? You need to apply that knowledge somewhere. Then it becomes your power, not just having the knowledge. So you're all doing engineering, BTech, what you learn is all good thing, but you have to apply this learning somewhere. That becomes your power. Right? This is thought I want to leave with you by Carl Jung. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. Thank you.